Today we're going to disassemble and clean the slide of the Taurus GX4. So we're going to remove the striker or the firing pin and clean the firing pin channel. Of course, first thing is to make sure the gun is unloaded so there's no magazine, there's no round in the chamber. All right, and then on the GX4, the takedown lever is not really a lever, it's more of kind of like a screw, but you get either the cool little tool they give you with the gun or a screwdriver. Turn that notch until it's horizontal. Point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, and then the slide comes right off the front of the gun. You want to remove the recoil spring and guide rod and lift out the barrel. All right, now what we're going to do is disassemble the rest of the slide and clean it up real good. So first thing you need to do is get this cover off the back. You are going to need eye protection for this procedure. This cover slides out this way. There's pressure on that cover, that's what keeps it in place. So you want to put a small tool like a pin punch or a screwdriver, get in there and press down on this little blue piece right there. And while you're pressing down, you want to push this out. So let's try and do that here. So push down and then that's going to come right out. Now you want to keep a finger over this because there is a spring now pushing up on that. And it has the potential of flying out of there. Mine did not. Then just grab a hold of it and pull it out. And this is your striker assembly. Once you have the firing pin removed, you can stop here if all you want to do is clean the firing pin channel and the firing pin itself. If you want to go further and remove the firing pin safety plunger and the extractor, we're going to do that next. So in order to remove the extractor, there's a pin right here. It's kind of a button and it's got pressure from underneath. Use a standard pin punch with a flat end on it. 3/32 pin punch. You don't want to use anything bigger than this, and just push straight down on that pin right in the middle of it. Push down on that pin straight down until you see your extractor start to pop out. All right, and now the next thing you want to know is there's a spring behind that pin, so you want to keep a finger over top here because that's going to come popping out of there. But I'm going to show you first what it looks like. Once we push the pin down, the extractor, because of the spring, started coming out a little bit, so you can kind of see it's partially out, but it's also keeping that pin from popping up. So what you want to do next is cover this top here and then pull your extractor out. All right, and that's to keep the pin from popping out. And now everything is loose. Your extractor came out. This is the extractor and the spring on the extractor there. And the next thing you're going to do is just turn this upside down, and your firing pin plunger safety is going to come out. That has its own spring. And the pin that holds everything together, this has got a spring also, and that's the top of the pin that you just pushed down. And then when you look in here, you've got a bunch of empty channels there, and we're going to clean all that out. Now you have all the moving parts removed from the slide. We're going to clean everything up and then put it back together. All right, for cleaning the slide and all the parts, I'm going to use Hops number 9. It's a gun cleaning solvent. I like to put it in this dispenser. It's a pump dispenser, so you just pump a little bit up at a time so you don't contaminate the solvent in the container here. I also use pipe cleaners. You'll see why shortly. And I use just a lot of cotton cloths. It's just a cut up t-shirt is all that is. And I have some regular cotton swabs which will work, but my favorite ones are these dual-ended swabs. They have a pointy end, which are great for getting in tight spots on guns, and a regular end on the other side. Okay, now we're going to disassemble the striker assembly. So this is a little bit tricky, so be sure you watch the whole thing before you attempt this. What we're going to do is remove this black plastic piece here. It's actually two pieces that holds the spring in place. So to do that, you want to hold the bottom and put your finger underneath this lug here so that it doesn't go down. And then grab a hold of the spring at the top, push it down, and you'll see that cup is in two pieces. They kind of fall right off there. And then when you release the spring gently, the spring comes right off. There is another spring underneath the spacer, so all this comes apart. All right, now your firing pin assembly or striker assembly is disassembled for cleaning. All right, so first I'm just going to clean up the firing pin assembly, get a little bit of the solvent with a cotton swab, and then I'm going to wipe everything down. Pretty quick to do. Make sure you get all your pieces. You'll want to wear rubber gloves if you're working with any kind of a solvent. I'm going to get inside these springs. This one isn't too dirty, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Get these cups cleaned off. All right, just get a cotton rag, wipe everything down. All right, once I get the firing pin cleaned up, all right, now I'm just going to do the same for all the other pieces here. This piece is pretty clean, so I don't need any solvent on this one. I'm just going to wipe down real good. The extractor does need a little bit of solvent cleaning, so we'll do that. Just going to get it cleaned with the solvent, get the pointy tip in there. The extractor does get pretty cruddy. You especially want to get in the notch here. This is where the extractor actually grabs the brass. You want to get in that notch as best you can. I like to use pipe cleaners to get really tight spaces like in this notch. This pipe cleaner gets in there super good. Look at all that extra dirt that it got out of there that the cotton swab just couldn't reach. Same thing for small holes anywhere. Pipe cleaners are fantastic. All right, and then wipe it down. Now use a dry pipe cleaner to get the rest of the crud out of there. All right, next we want to clean up the firing pin plunger. Get that cleaned up nice. Wipe that down with the rag. Then the firing pin plunger spring. Make sure you don't get these springs mixed up. This spring is very close to this other spring here. This is the extractor spring. It's a little bit thicker. It looks like it's got a little reddish tint to it. They probably put that on there on purpose so you don't get it mixed up. This is the plunger spring. It's a little bit lighter weight. One of the best ways to get these small springs cleaned is to get a pipe cleaner. It's going to go right through there and clean those all up real good. That one's not too bad. This extractor spring is pretty dirty, so I'm going to get a little solvent on a pipe cleaner and just push that right through there. Cleans it up very nice and very quick. And then you can dry it off just by going down the other end of the pipe cleaner. Nice and dry down there. And then wipe the whole thing off. Same thing with this little plunger. It's got a spring in there, very tiny parts here, and you do want to clean that. Pipe cleaner is probably the only thing that's going to really fit in there. Solvent on the outside. Finish that off with a dry pipe cleaner. This spring is so tiny, I'm not sure a pipe cleaner is even going to fit. Oh, but it does. All right, fits in there real nice. All right, push that through. That's nice and clean. Make sure you get any of the little pipe cleaner strands out of there. All right, now I got all the pieces nice and cleaned up. Now I want to clean the slide itself. I'm not going to clean the entire slide. That is something for the entire gun video. I'm just going to clean the areas where I removed parts for this particular project. All right, so I'm just going to get some cotton swabs and some solvent, and I'm going to go into each of these holes. Get this all cleaned out in these holes here. Then I'm going to get down in the firing pin channel itself. Get that all cleaned up in there. All right, once you get it clean, just get some clean dry swabs and get in there and get all the solvent off of there. Now this little hole here, you're not going to be able to get that without a pipe cleaner. Not a critical area, but you want to get it clean since you're here. Make sure you get the breech face real good. Real important right there. One last thing is get a pipe cleaner, put it through the firing pin channel, and it'll come through the firing pin hole in the breech face there. Get that nice and clean. Blow off any strands, wipe everything down, the cloth afterwards. Make sure you get pipe cleaner into this little hole here. All right, now we've got everything pretty clean. Now we're going to reassemble. All right, first let's reassemble the firing pin assembly. First you want to take the firing pin itself and put the small spring on there. It does not matter which way. And then feed that into the spacer like so. Kind of hold that in place. Now this spring has two ends to it. You have one end which is kind of completely closed end, and then you have one end where the spring kind of ends abruptly. So this abrupt ending here is going to go onto the pin this way because this side is nice, complete, and round, and that's where your little cups are going to sit. All right, to put these cups back in, what you need to do is push this spring down, but at the same time you have to hold this lug from moving downward. So you need to keep this lug up in this slot. So I find it easiest to use something to support this up above the table so that you can push this down, and you need to get the spring down below this part here to put the cups back on. So anything with an edge to it, the edge of the desk or whatever will work. This is a real avid bench block that I like to use. All right, just set it on the edge of a hole here like that, or the edge of a table or something. Hold that down. Put the 1/2 cup in one side. Maybe slide it around to the other side. And then put the other cup in. And then release the spring until it looks just like that. Everything should look just like this one does here. All right, so next we want to put all these spring-loaded pieces back together into the slide. Now this is tricky as well. What is really going to help a lot if you have a little bit of gun grease. And the purpose of the grease is going to be to kind of hold the springs in place. So just take a small amount of grease on the end of this spring and then stick it in here. That's just going to help keep it from falling out while you're trying to manipulate things. Do the same thing on the plunger spring. That's going to help keep it in place. It's especially going to be helpful on this as well. Put a little blob right there, and then this spring just sits here. You see how that kind of stays in place? So the first thing we want to do here is just take this and drop this straight down inside. Straight down inside there. Next we want to put in the firing pin safety plunger, and this goes in this way. Make sure you put it in this way with the higher part toward the outside of the slide. Next, the extractor goes into this slot here. You're going to have to put this end in first because it's got a little hook right there. All right, so that's kind of go up underneath like that, and then slide it down. This hole here lines up with this hole, but it's not going to go in right now because you got a couple of things in the way. So put a little pressure with your thumb here, push down on this pin here to allow this to go in. All right, I'm going to be pressing down on this pin right in the middle. I'm going to push that down and slowly bring this in on top of it. And then this has to be sideways like that. All right, so next we want to push this extractor in far enough so that the pin that's being held down with the spring lines up with this hole and then pops up. So to do that, I'm going to use one of these easy hold clamps, and it's got soft plastic here so it's not going to damage the gun. And I'm going to use this to push the extractor in, but it's only pushing it in flush, so it's not pushing it in quite enough to line up with the pin. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get a toothpick or something and just lay it along the extractor. So this is going to allow the clamp to push the extractor in a little bit further than flush. All right, I'm going to line everything up just like so. I'm going to use the clamp to squeeze everything together, and if I lined it up right, the pin popped right in place. Perfect. All right, so just release that. Nothing got scratched or marred up, and the pin is in place. So everything is now back together as it should be. So next we're going to put the firing pin back in. The firing pin just slides in here. It's only going to go in one way with that lug facing up, and the lug has to line up with the slot there and push it in as far as it goes. And now the last thing we need to do is push that down and then slide this cover back in the notches here. So you can go ahead and start the cover in the notches, put a little pressure on it, and then take some kind of a pin punch with a flat edge to it, push down, and then push your cover right back on like that. All right, and everything should be back in place. One quick test that you can do to make sure everything's right is you can try to push this lug for the firing pin to come out that hole, and it should not come out the hole. You can see it moving in there, but it shouldn't come out through the breech face unless you're pressing on the firing pin safety plunger. So when you press down on this and press the firing pin, now it will come out through the hole. If you let go of that, it should not come out from the hole. Next step is to reassemble the gun. One thing I want to mention here is I did not put any lubrication on the firing pin or in the firing pin channel. That was on purpose. You really don't want any lubrication inside the firing pin channel. It's not necessary, and if lubrication is in there, any dirt that gets in there is going to hang around and it's going to possibly impede the firing pin. So you don't want any lube inside the firing pin channel. Put everything back together like so. Line up the slide with the frame like this, and then comes right back on the gun. This automatically goes back into the proper place. Real quick, make sure the slide feels like it should, like it did before. All right, now that the gun is back together, you'll want to do a quick function and safety check. I'll leave a link up in the corner here for that quick video so you can make sure your gun is working properly and all the safeties are working, and then your gun is good to go. If you like this video, please hit like below. Please check out the description below for all the tools and supplies that we used in this video, and thank you for watching.